Many view rudeness as a character flaw, something that tarnishes reputations, severs connections, and highlights immaturity. While that perception holds some truth, it's only part of the story. The overlooked reality is that, when wielded thoughtfully, rudeness can become one of the most potent social tools at your disposal. Often, what we label as rudeness is actually unapologetic honesty, truth stripped of the need to cushion someone else's ego. Few are prepared for the strength this kind of honesty demands, not because it's inherently harmful, but because it requires discipline to deploy it effectively. Most people resort to rudeness impulsively, as a reaction rather than a strategy. The first principle to grasp is the distinction between emotional rudeness and strategic rudeness. Emotional rudeness stems from insecurity. It's a defensive outburst driven by feelings of insignificance or powerlessness. This type of behavior exposes vulnerability. It reveals that you can be provoked or shaken. Strategic rudeness, however, is deliberate, measured, and rare. It's the choice to say something sharp and intentional when silence could suffice, not out of recklessness, but to assert control and recalibrate how others perceive you. This calculated approach makes people pause and reconsider their assumptions about you. I can't deal with this person the way I thought I could. Power isn't rooted in being universally liked. It's anchored in respect, and sometimes respect blends with an edge of fear. There's a common misconception that niceness equates to morality. Yet, niceness is often just compliance in disguise, a form of submission wrapped in courtesy. Excessive politeness becomes an invisible chain, enabling others to control you under the guise of maintaining harmony. The overly polite individual consistently yields ground, having been conditioned to prioritize peace over personal boundaries. On the flip side, those comfortable with being perceived as rude possess a form of freedom that terrifies others, the freedom to say no without guilt, to confront untruths without sugarcoating, and to uphold their boundaries unapologetically. Reflect on how often manipulation is masked by good manners. Someone might interrupt you subtly, cross your boundaries with a smile, or deliver veiled insults, all under the guise of civility. Your hesitation to push back, for fear of appearing rude, tightens the very leash they exploit. In moments like these, one might recall Machiavelli's wisdom. Politeness often serves as a tool for the weak to silence the strong. By obsessing over being agreeable, you grant your adversaries the comfort they need to undermine you while you remain subdued. But here lies the nuance. Real strength doesn't come from constant displays of rudeness. It resides in the potential for it, paired with immense self-control. The mere possibility of rudeness becomes a power in itself. Picture someone who rarely shows anger, who speaks with calm confidence, and yet, when they finally break that composure ever so slightly, the entire room shifts. That's true power. It's not about being aggressive at every turn. It's about mastering contrast and knowing precisely when to disrupt it. Politeness lays the groundwork, but rudeness drives the point home. Strategic rudeness strips communication of unnecessary embellishments, leaving it sharp and direct. It's not about shouting or insulting. It's about stepping away from performative civility. It's about answering plainly where diplomacy is expected, refusing to smile at deceit, and declining to cushion truths for the comfort of others. This is often perceived as rude because many equate politeness with manipulation disguised as kindness. When you deliver truth unvarnished, you become unpredictable, and unpredictability is a subtle yet commanding form of power. People begin to monitor themselves around you, speaking with caution and respect, because they realize you don't conform to conventional niceties. This is where Machiavellian brilliance shines. The soft social norms that govern society benefit those who conform. But by breaking those norms with precision, you disrupt expectations, creating confusion, and in confusion lies opportunity. Niccolo Machiavelli once observed that a ruler should embody both the lion's strength and the fox's cunning. Strategic rudeness fuses these traits, strength wrapped in calculated cleverness. Though it may seem irrational to others in the moment, you are, in fact, shaping their perceptions intentionally. Consider this. Excessive politeness can give others the impression that your boundaries are flexible. Occasional, deliberate rudeness challenges that illusion. For example, an overly friendly boss who tries to connect with employees on a peer level may foster a pleasant dynamic initially. Over time, however, discipline erodes, deadlines are missed, and respect wanes. When the boss finally lays down the law, they're seen as the villain, not because of their authority, but because they failed to establish it early on. A well-timed boundary-setting moment, a refusal to laugh at an inappropriate joke, or a firm expression that halts inappropriate familiarity, could have established their position effortlessly. Strategic rudeness relies on selectivity. It's impactful because it's unexpected. Perpetual rudeness is tiresome and counterproductive. However, if you remain measured and composed most of the time, a sudden, candid, unpolished remark cuts through with unforgettable force. What others might label as rudeness transforms into authority in such moments. Authority isn't about volume or prolonged arguments. It's about decisiveness and finality. A common misstep is confusing rude behavior with rebellion. Unchecked loudness or offensiveness is not power. True power lies in quiet control, declining to flatter, refusing to over-explain yourself, and maintaining an unwavering ability to say no without theatrics. Imagine someone testing your patience. A calm statement such as, "You're wasting my time," uttered with quiet conviction, has far more impact than a long-winded excuse or emotional outburst. Machiavelli would recognize this as dominance distilled into its simplest form, minimal effort for maximum effect. Power isn't demonstrated by the abundance of words, but by what remains unsaid. True rudeness doesn't aim to overwhelm. It denies the expected response, the apologies, small talk, and compliance on which others depend. Without this emotional predictability, people feel unsettled or even offended at first. Yet underneath that discomfort comes a grudging respect. Strength is universally recognized, even if it disturbs, and moments of calculated bluntness reaffirm the boundaries that demand such respect. Machiavelli might have advised against prioritizing likability over clarity. If being perceived as rude is the price of clarity, it's worth paying. Those who matter will respect your candidness. Others were never truly your allies to begin with. Strategic rudeness can even serve as a test of loyalty. Challenge someone bluntly or push them out of their comfort zone and watch how they respond. The insecure may retreat or resort to gossip, while the confident will meet you with understanding or even humor. True strength in relationships emerges through friction rather than flattery. The art of timing is crucial in this realm. A sharp remark delivered at just the right moment can recalibrate social dynamics instantly. Imagine a conversation derailed by manipulation. Perhaps someone tries to guilt-trip you, distort your words, or play victim. A simple yet disarming phrase such as, "You're not being honest," can pierce through their attempt effortlessly. There's no malice in this. It's pure clarity. Most people panic in the face of unadorned truth. They stammer, deflect, or fume. But whatever their reaction, the mask slips. And in that moment of revelation, you've already won. Machiavelli suggested that masks hold society together, but believed that only the fearless possess the strength to remove them when necessary. Once you stop fearing the label of rudeness, you free yourself from emotional manipulation. You were taught to be kind, but not to command respect. To maintain peace, even when that peace only benefited those who kept you subdued. In society, honesty from the polite is punished, while the bluntness of the rude is met with fear. The irony lies in the fact that the rude don't necessarily need to be cruel. They simply remain indifferent to seeking approval. This is the essence of Machiavellian assertiveness, indifference. When you stop craving validation, your words naturally gain a sharper edge, your boundaries solidify, and your energy ceases to drain into unnecessary performances. The moment you depend on others to like you, you relinquish power. The moment you can walk away without needing their approval, you seize it. Those who fail to grasp this concept will often dismiss you as arrogant. But arrogance and power are not the same. Arrogance thrives on an audience. True power does not need one. There's no need to prove superiority over others. What matters is abandoning the pretense of being beneath them. This is why Machiavelli advised that a wise person must learn not how to be loved, but how to be feared in moderation. Fear does not always equate to terror. Sometimes it simply symbolizes respect, accompanied by emotional distance. It creates the understanding that your boundaries are firm and not open for negotiation. When applied appropriately, well-measured assertiveness strikes a perfect balance, enough distance to safeguard your authority and just enough presence to command attention. Let's translate this principle into everyday life. When someone disrespects you, your natural instinct might be to explain yourself, engage in argument, or win their favor. But Machiavelli would find this laughable. Explanation is a cost borne by the powerless. The powerful neither plead nor justify. They deliver a precise correction and move forward. Imagine someone repeatedly interrupting you in conversation. Instead of saying, "Sorry, can I finish my point?" You hold their gaze and state firmly, "I wasn't finished speaking." At first, that might feel confrontational or heavy, but that's exactly the point. It shifts the balance back in your favor, leaving a lasting impression. That moment recalibrates how others treat you in the future. When rudeness is wielded skillfully, it acts as a reflective tool, a mirror exposing the hidden disrespect someone projects toward you. You stop tolerating behaviors that chip away at your sense of dignity. You stop using humor to mask insults directed at you. You stop softening your language merely to make others comfortable. Each time you resist these compromises, you reclaim parts of your authority that societal politeness has tried to sap from you over time. Because in its barest form, politeness is a mechanism to control others, not a means of empowering oneself. It's how groups ensure compliance by equating blunt honesty with immorality. Machiavelli recognized this long ago. Those who determine what constitutes rudeness also dictate who gets to speak without constraints. But there's another layer to this. Mastering assertiveness isn't about being cruel or unfeeling. It's about being steadfastly loyal to your truth. You become what others might perceive as rude when you abandon performance and diplomacy in favor of genuine honesty. When you speak plainly and unapologetically about what matters, you liberate honesty from fear. Most people avoid this because honesty disrupts comfort. They'd rather feign contentment than risk authenticity. Yet Machiavelli's philosophy reframes this entirely. Comfort is far more dangerous than discomfort. The individual who remains unshaken by uncomfortable truths will inevitably dominate those who seek refuge in niceties. This dynamic is visible across all realms of power. The CEO who decisively fires a toxic employee without ceremony, the soldier who gives sharp orders and saves lives because his clarity leaves no room for confusion. The leader who earns unwavering loyalty through results rather than hollow flattery. These are all examples of individuals leveraging honest assertion, not to undermine others, but to stand unwaveringly aligned with their own truths and purpose. Not one or the other, but both, perfectly balanced. To internalize this equilibrium, there's something you need to let go of first: the addiction to being misunderstood. Too often, people exhaust themselves trying to clarify their intentions, fearing labels like rude, harsh, arrogant, or cold. But when you come to understand true power, you recognize that every label is a leash. The moment you care what others call you, you begin living under their conditions. Strategic rudeness breaks that leash. It serves as a reminder that misunderstanding is often the cost of integrity, a cost well worth paying. Here's an overlooked truth. When you stop defending your character, your reputation takes over. Time has a way of exposing consistency. You won't need to explain that you're not inherently rude. Your actions will speak for themselves. You'll be seen as someone who is fair, yet firm, calm, yet commanding. While people may not like you immediately, they'll eventually come to trust you for your unwavering stance. And that kind of trust, rooted in certainty, is far more valuable than fleeting popularity. Now let's address the emotional aspect. Rudeness doesn't mean dismissing emotions. It means not allowing emotions to dictate how you express yourself. You can be furious and still articulate with precision, disappointed yet maintain composure, firmly done with someone and still extend politeness, but only once, as a courtesy, not submission. Every emotion has its time and place, but you decide when and how it shows itself. That is the difference between an ordinary mindset and a Machiavellian one. The ordinary person reacts. The Machiavellian calculates. Some calculations require a sharp edge. Think about your own life. How many times have you withheld the truth to protect another's feelings? How often have you endured disrespect with a smile? Replayed conversations wishing you'd spoken your mind? Those moments accumulate and chip away at your confidence until they change you, quieter, smaller, less assured. But once you start speaking your mind, even if it initially feels rude, the weight begins to lift. You reclaim your natural authority and shift from overthinking to focusing on what's necessary. That transition from emotional to essential marks the birth of true power. The reality is that most people don't deserve your default politeness. It should be earned, not assumed. Politeness becomes powerful when it's treated as a privilege rather than a shield. Reserve it for those who've gained your respect, not everyone clamoring for your attention. This conserves your energy and projects subtle but undeniable dominance. You become like a fortress, accessible only by choice, not force, a far cry from being pushed around by others. This is the foundation of Machiavellian rudeness. It's not about diminishing others, but fortifying yourself. It's the awareness of when to withdraw warmth, when to let silence carry the message, when to close the doors entirely. It's recognizing that your presence has value and treating it as such. When few have access to you, your worth naturally increases. That's how true power compounds, not through constant visibility, but through careful scarcity. Those who mistake this for arrogance, they were never meant to understand you anyway. They operate in a world where agreeableness equals survival, a world you've outgrown. You're not surviving anymore, you're commanding. Command comes in many forms: walking away mid-conversation, saying no without justifying it, allowing others to assume you're rude when in fact you've simply stopped explaining yourself. That's not rudeness, that's sovereignty.